Hi there, and welcome to another episode. Today we have a very interesting topic to talk about, if I say so. We have something that's quite personal, quite deep, quite meaningful, quite challenging. We will be talking with Challaine Emerson about sobriety. She will share openly her story of realizing that she really needs to get her life together and how she one day simply woke up and realized just need to change her life, and she has been sober ever since, and how she changed her life and how she's working then with other people, helping people, creating content and doing all sorts of wonderful things, helping people change their life. Sometimes it can be about getting sober and dealing with alcohol or any kind of addiction, and sometimes it can be just changing habits, like really changing our lives to have more life in one's life. So without any further ado, let's go into this wonderful, deep, insightful conversation with Challaine.
But before we get into our conversation, I just want to remind you about our Patreon account, and you can find us at Into Your Life podcast. And this is a community that we are slowly starting to build up. It's a place where we are putting little nuggets and snippets from previous episodes with some great advice from some of our speakers. It is also a place where we take out the gold nuggets, and this is where you can find it. And if you listen to some of our older episodes, you will know that we get some amazing gold nuggets. Well, they are all in the Patreon account now. This is a community that we are building. There is a free section as well as a paid membership section. Please just join whichever one suits you right now. Come and be part of a community. Link and I will be adding bonuses and new content into this community, into the space, and it's also a place where you can connect with us. So come and join us and be part of this wonderful community. But now let's get on with this wonderful guest that we have with a topic that we've not really done before. So it's been wonderful to have her. Enjoy.
Hi, please join us in welcoming today's fantastic guest. We have Challaine here with us. Hi there.
Hello.
So please tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're calling from. Just give us a bit of a, context to what we might get into today in our conversation.
Oh, this could be a loaded question. My name's Challaine, and I live in Canada. I am a mother of four, and basically, my message and my story is in regards to my sobriety. I drank for over 20 years, and my last night of drinking, I had 2 bottles of wine, half a 2.6 of whiskey. I smoked some weed and took lorazepam. And my final thoughts before bed were, how many of these little pills of the lorazepam do I have to take to end it all? And I had never been suicidal in my life. So, like I said, I'm a mother of four, and my four children came rushing to my mind in that moment. And it was, Challaine, put yourself to bed. So I did that and went to bed, got up the next morning completely hungover, like one of my worst hangovers ever. And we had a 13-hour drive to go to work. Thank goodness my husband was driving, because there was no way I was capable of driving. And we get to the hotel, and we would drive for work because it's spring over there and it's winter where I live. So we follow the weather with the landscaping company. And there was a freak snowstorm. So we were locked in our hotel room for 4 days, and I really had no other choice to detox. And in those 4 days, the title to my book, I woke up one day and changed my fucking mind. That's actually the title to my book. And that is kind of, I guess, the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. I don't even know how to word it. But since that morning that I woke up in that hotel room and had the worst 4 days of my life detoxing there, it changed my life forever. It absolutely did. And I couldn't be more grateful for that evening, my final night of drinking, for when my children came rushing to my mind and said, put yourself to bed, Challaine. Like, you've never been suicidal in your life, and this is a problem.
Well, thank you so much for just sharing so openly straight away. I know that, for some this might be a bit difficult conversation, and we definitely would put some disclaimers because it can be triggering for people. But I wanted to then maybe chat a little bit with you about, the beginnings. You kind of touched on, your life. What led you to maybe ending up in position like this, to feeling like this, to, we live in a society where alcohol is absolutely normal. Like, it's part of the thing. Like, it's an addictive substance that yet it's almost encouraged. Like, I come from Czech Republic. We are known as the nation of beer. We are the beer drinking superpower. Genuinely, our tiny little nation for years had held the first place in how much beer we can drink per head per year. Children and elderly included, it's ridiculous amount. And for lots of people, I always explain that in Czech Republic, beer is a soft drink. It's the drink you water down the shots, the spirits. Like, we have quite strong shots, something like vodka, but worse, stronger, awful, homemade, pretty lethal. And we have shots of that, and we then
Sounds like moonshine.
yeah, and we
Is it like
then
moonshine?
it's similar to if you would go to Greece and you have a rakia, you have something like ouzo. So it's usually made from plums or apples or any kind of a fruits, and it's fermented and then made into pure alcohol, which we water down to very humble 53% roughly, which is killer. So that's what I grew up with. I grew up with beer is just this thing you drink. A little bit of a note that when I was a child, beer was the cheapest thing you could buy in a restaurant, in a pub. So when would I be traveling with my family? We don't serve tap water. So buying a juice, buying a water would be usually double the price than buying a pint of beer. So obviously, even as a 10-year-old, I would be drinking beer because it was the cheapest thing you can buy to drink in a pub. We now have a law that forces bars and restaurants to offer at least one soft drink cheaper than beer. But that's how I grew up with, being in this awareness of beer is a soft drink that you drink to stay hydrated. And if you're drinking, then you're drinking something, and beer is to water it down. And obviously that we can then go maybe into how then it, evolved into my relationship with alcohol and why I've decided to go sober and how that happened. But that made me then wonder, what was your upbringing maybe like, or what was your initial stages of getting familiar with alcohol, or, anything else that may have led you then to the situation of ending up, really overdoing it and having this realization that maybe, wait a minute, something needs to
Hold
change.
on. Well, first of all, congrats on your sobriety. That is absolutely huge, and you hit the nail on the head. It is so trendy, and I'm 39 years old, and I'm finding that as a 90s girl, and within my peer group and on social media and women of my age, mommy needs wine is such, like, it's ingrained in our culture right now. And I was that one. Mommy needs wine. Every single night, I would grab my bottle, usually turned into two, and then I'd get into my husband's whiskey. That was my time to cook a 30-minute meal that would take 2.5 hours, because I would plan my cooking for going out for a smoke and a drink. And that was my mommy needs wine time. And I was escaping from a life that I was trying to create. And it's so twisted. Like, why am I trying to escape from a life that I'm trying to create? So congrats on your sobriety. That's absolutely huge. I took my first drink when I was 12, 13, with a boy that I had met on a phone party line. And I still remember the number to this day, but I'm not going to say it in case it's still active. Hope it's not, but yeah, he introduced me to, it was probably coolers or beer or something. And then it just kind of kept going from there. So that was junior high. And then my mother moved me away from him because he smoked the pot. and was worried that I was going to start smoking weed with him. I never did. To this day, like I hold that true. I never smoked weed with him. And she moved me away. That's when I first started smoking weed. And then I got addicted to smoking weed. And I found for me at the time, it really brought out my creativity. It brought out my focus in high school. And I'd have my headphones on, sitting in the library, just doing all my work. And then the parties started happening in high school, the bush parties and the older boys, and just drinking in the bushes till 3 o'clock in the morning, sleeping with whoever, like just no inhibitions, so much confidence. And then, oh, I don't know, I moved back from where my mother moved me to, back to Calgary, and the drinking just continued. I got a job in the bar. So when working in the bar, the patrons would buy you drinks and you end up loaded by the end of the night. And it was lifestyle. It was just part of what we did. And then I got pregnant with my first when I was 22, and I've never drank through any of my pregnancies. I actually intuitively would quit drinking about a week before I found out I was pregnant. So even though I drank so much, I still had like this intuition. It was still strong. So never drank through any of my pregnancies. And then it just kept going and just became lifestyle. And I think I became more addicted to the habit of drinking than the actual alcohol itself. So finished work, go to the liquor store, buy the wine, buy the coolers, whatever, and then continue my evening routine. And then I got arrested at one point in my life. I got into just some stupid altercation with my ex, and I ended up sleeping in the drunk tank. Had to do, what was it, 20 weeks of women's counseling, and I wasn't charged with anything. Like it was drunk mom, first time, lost her shit sort of thing. And then it just kept going and going. And about 8 years ago, I met my husband, and our relationship from the get-go was based off of alcohol, cocaine, gambling, and that just spiraled. But in the midst of all of that, we were building a business, and the business was so fantastic. We still have it, and making all this money. So the more money you make, the more fun you have with that money. And within 7 years, we gambled over $500,000 because we were drinking. We never gambled sober, ever. And when you're drinking and at the machines and you're pressing the buttons, I don't know, you think you have a superpower and it's gonna pay out. But I'm here to tell you, it never does. It never does. You chase the wins and you chase the losses. So yeah, the businesses they just kept going and making more money, and I wasn't happy. I was not happy, regardless, like $1 million house, $100,000 vehicle, successful businesses, but I was not happy. I was not fulfilling my dharma. Um, Working our job as business owners, it became a job, and it was extremely transactional. And I'm such a people person, and I say it all the time, people need people. And before I met my husband, I was a personal trainer in the gym for 15 years. And that was the most rewarding job of my life. I was a coach, I was a confidant, I was a friend, I was a nutritionist, a personal trainer, and just seeing the impact that I had being a part of someone else's life was incredible for me. And I lost that because I was so focused on building these businesses and chasing the dream, right? And then that night happened of my last night of drinking, and I changed my life. I got back to what I was meant to do and to live on purpose, writing the book, and then being guests on podcasts and sharing my story. We have to get this stuff out. If we verbally or like physically don't write it down and get it out, it manifests in your body to such an extreme of like the anxiety and the depression, and like it gets so icky and stuck inside. So I started being a guest on podcasts, and then I was like, I absolutely love this. So I started my own podcast and just connecting with people, like sober people need sober people. And then I had always kind of like seen on social media people putting themselves out there, and it was super awkward and uncomfortable for me to start doing like, okay, I'm talking to myself in a video on Instagram. This is really dumb, but I started doing that and like breaking out of these uncomfortable zones. And I think that just like continuing to share the story, whether I have an impact on one person or a million people, if it's just that one person that sharing my story helps them to think about their lives or to turn their life into a different direction, then that means I'm living on purpose.
And we really appreciate you speaking up and speaking with us because, yes, we need to normalize talking about not drinking. We need to make not drinking a little bit more socially accepted and the default choice, because right now drinking is the default, is the norm. And again, I have nothing against someone wanting to have a glass here and there. When you go to Italy, you have beautiful dinner. Yes, have a glass of really good quality wine with that. But the
I
way,
can't do that. So kudos to those people who could do that, because I cannot. One is too many and one is never enough for me. And yeah, one glass, I don't know how people do it. I can't.
and I think that that's the beauty of us having then this kind of conversation, because there will be people who have to go cold turkey, who have to go extreme, who cannot have a sip ever again. And that's the thing for them that they really need, and they enjoy it and appreciate it. They don't miss it and they don't feel the need. And then there will be people who will say, well, I'm not drinking unless maybe once a year there is a really wonderful opportunity and I really feel like I will celebrate with a glass of something, and that's fine. Because for me, when I look at this conversation, I also look at then the science and the health and well-being and the research that says, yes, ideally the ideal number of alcohol is 0. But if we're talking about that 0 is very unrealistic for many people, then the realistic number will be maybe 2 units per week and no more than 2 units in a row ever. So that's kind of 2 glasses with a dinner once a week would be still almost not drinking.
Absolutely.
But having this as a normalization of that most of the time you will say no to alcohol, you will not drink, but yet allowing yourself in cases, if it's helpful, to be like, we don't have to be all or nothing. As the saying goes with veganism or being vegetarian or things like, we don't have to be perfect all of the time if it works for us this way.
Mhm. It's a super unrealistic expectation to be perfect all the time, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you set that expectation to be perfect at this one thing, that means you're trying to be perfect in all areas of your life, and it's an unrealistic expectation. You're talking about the recommended or the allowable amounts of alcohol in a week, and I've become so, I guess, obsessed with my sobriety and just like learning as much as I can. And alcohol is a poison. Alcohol is absolutely a poison. And I've linked it just mentally. I've linked it to like say bleach, right? Alcohol is ethyl alcohol, right? And that is in petroleum, it is in gas. Like, let's link alcohol to gas, right? Is it acceptable? Is it healthy for you to have 1 to 2 pints or glasses or ounces even of alcohol or of gasoline a week? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that is how committed and just like how terrified I am of alcohol. And it's interesting to think like the amount of booze that has gone down in my life. I could probably like fill a million shipping containers full. Like it blows my mind. And the fact that I got out of it before it was too late, like the cirrhosis of the liver or liver cancer or brain cancer or breast cancer is can be caused by alcohol, that I got out of it before it was too late. And we don't have to wait until a diagnosis and then try to fix the diagnosis to quit the alcohol. We know the alcohol is bad. Let's work on changing our habits and our relationship with alcohol. It's a relationship that we have with this substance. It's either a best friend, it's a spouse, it's a babysitter. Like, it can be all these things for us. We have these relationships with this poison that we need to reevaluate. And it's important that we really, I guess, get a grip of what purpose is this substance doing in our lives. What purpose does it have in our lives?
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and where you come from, and well done for listening to yourself, because as you said, you had that moment, but so many people have that moment, but they get up the next day and have the hair of the dog, as they say here, and carry on and have another moment and another close call and another, and it doesn't end. There's no end. And I spent I did have a relationship with an alcoholic, and seeing how alcohol was his first love. I came second.
Good way to put it. Right?
And it was very much, he was a wonderful person, so clever, had so much potential, but because of alcohol, he never realized his potential. He never utilized his brain or his ideas or anything. And it's really sad to see somebody like that just drinking themselves into oblivion almost. And he is, as far as I know, he's still an alcoholic, and he's still drinking. So my question to you is, you said that you met your husband and you were building the businesses and you were both drinking. How has you not drinking impacted your relationship with your husband? Does he still drink, or is he on your journey as well with the sobriety and everything else?
He had his last drink the same night I had mine. If he didn't, I'm sure our relationship would be completely different. He definitely had a higher tolerance to alcohol than me. He could drink more, but what does that mean, I guess? And the fights, just the fighting that we would do over ridiculous things. Like, they were so insignificant that I couldn't even tell you today what any of our fights are about. And this went on for 7 years. We had one fight, and I think I talk about it in my book, but it was just one of my stupidest moments. He was in bed. Don't even know what happened. I went into the room, pulled the covers off of him. I don't know, maybe he didn't vacuum or empty the dishwasher. Like, it was so menial, like it was nothing. I go into the bedroom, rip the blankets off of him, and he's like cold, dead sleep. And then we have king size mattress. I start pulling the mattress out of the room. Where was I going at 2 o'clock in the morning or midnight, whatever time it was, with a grown man on a king size mattress down the stairs? I don't know. To this day, like, it just goes to show the absurdity that alcohol, what it does to us and the situations that it puts us in. But to answer your question, our relationship's fantastic. We have gone to therapy. I'm a huge advocate for therapy coaching. I'm a recovery coach myself now. And the children, the biggest impact has been on our children. And when I first got sober, or we got sober, my oldest son, he's 16, he was really uncomfortable in the house. He asked me, not verbatim, I can't remember word for word, but he was like, it's really weird. Like, it's so calm. The vibes in here, like, it's like he didn't know how to act in this new environment, because being the oldest, excuse me, I think he put like this sense of responsibility, and he needed to be the man of the house because we were always leaving, going to the casino and going to the pub and all these things. So it's like it took a weight off of his shoulders, and he didn't know how to act in this new skin, in this new role of just being a child, right? Because we'd come home wasted, or we'd be at the bar. Oh shit, well, we didn't feed the kids supper tonight. So we'd order food from the pub or from somewhere else and get it delivered to the house. Like we weren't even feeding our kids properly, and just relying on the older ones to babysit the little ones. So when I was drinking, my oldest son, he had one foot out the door. He was over it, completely over it. And like I said, once I got sober, he had to kind of figure out his position in the family and this new role. And he didn't believe me. He didn't believe me. Oh yeah, yeah, until something else happens. Actually, that's what my daughter said when I was like, no, I'm done for good this time. Because of course, every person who drinks consistently over many years, yeah, I've quit. This is it. This is for good this time. Yeah, I think she said something along the lines of, oh, until something stressful happens. And it kind of put me in a position of like, ha ha ha, no, it's for real this time, but also like, wow, my kids don't even believe me. So my husband getting sober with me has been transformative for our family. I'm so confident in my sobriety. He actually asked me 2 days ago, do you think you'll ever have another drink? I said, no, absolutely not. I'm terrified, absolutely terrified of alcohol now. And I don't want to feel like that warm and your body's starting to change. And I was starting to get to the point where like I was slurring my words, like I had a disability or something when I was drinking. And my final night of drinking, my daughter saw me stumble in the bathroom, and she's never seen me like that before. And I have memories, of course, we go back to childhood with all these things. I have memories of my mother being wasted and her falling in the middle of the night, and I heard the thump, and I had to pick her up and get her to the bathroom. And that I do not want to be my mother. I do not want to be my mother. And I was heading down that path. My mother did quit drinking, but I wasn't going to be that person to my children, and I'm not. I'm not anymore.
It's great that your husband's on this journey with you, because just from what I've seen from other, couples where one gives up drinking, the other one doesn't. And I know for myself is eventually it was, I'm sorry, I can't live with this anymore, because there's this like third entity in the relationship that you cannot you cannot compete with. You can threaten, you can do all sorts, but until that person decides to make a change, there's nothing you can do. And then you have these, I called them, I had a schizophrenic relationship, because there was the sober and there was the drunk, and they never really connected. You just never knew which one you were going to be dealing with, how they were going to be. And I think it's wonderful that your husband's come with you on this journey, that you can actually, in a way, keep your relationship and have a relationship. Because especially if you a drinker giving up drinking and the other one is still drinking, temptation is much stronger than if you both quit at the same time, because then there's none in the house. There's not that, oh, well, just come with me to the pub, or I'll just have one, come on, I don't want to go to the pub on my own, come on, just have one. That temptation is too strong. Whereas if you're together, then I'm gathering, then if there's a wobble or something, it's like, no, we've got this, we can do this. There's that support, there's that, no, let's do this, let's keep going. It's another day until you deal with it, until you find your footing in a way.
I've absolutely won in the husband department because I never asked him. I never asked him to quit. He just quit with me, and we've talked about it, and I think he's been more tempted to have, like, just have a beer or have a scotch. he's been more tempted than I have. I've maybe like just a handful of times. But he, from a moral perspective, and he said this to me, from a moral perspective, I cannot do something that you are so committed to not doing, I guess. And I've always said to him, I was like, look, it's your body, it's your choice. If you want to have a drink, like I'm not gonna hold it against you. I'm not gonna call you out. But if you go out and get wasted one night, you better not be calling me. Right? Like I cannot be that person for him if he makes that decision, get a hotel, you're not welcome home sort of thing. But it's never really, once we got rid of the booze and we just like we got rid of it. And actually no, that's a lie. We had a party at right before Christmas. Last year, it was a housewarming party, and we have leftover booze from that party. It's up sitting in the cabinet. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I should probably just throw all that booze out. But that just goes to show, like, it's out of my mind. It's out of my mind. It's gone, and the temptation isn't there because I've switched my habits and my routine. And I think anybody who may be struggling, like I said earlier on in the episode, anyone who may be struggling like I was, being addicted to the habit, not necessarily the substance, but the habit of getting the drink after work, the habit of um, drinking as you're making supper. Breaking the habit is what is important. So maybe it was divine timing. I'm going to go with that. Thank the good Lord that I physically had to break my habit and go to another province and leave my home. Because if I would have stayed at home, I would have continued the cycle. I would have kept going to the liquor store. And like I was at the point of needing wine to vacuum, needing wine to do the laundry, but the biggest one was cooking. So living out of a hotel room and physically breaking the habit, if you can get away and change your landscape, that was transformative for me.
And you're making a really good point about, it is a habit. Like we are very habitual creatures. We are
Mhm.
designed to, build a routine and reinforce the routine. And our brains are sometimes not so smart in reinforcing what, makes us feel good and gives us the feel good hormones and chemicals. So it can be very hard to, as you said, to break the habit and then find a way of sticking to this new habit, because
Mhm.
we can so easily just follow the path. The path we've always been on is the easiest one. It requires no effort. Changing habit requires effort. And it's okay, and we can manage with willpower and strength and will and planning when everything's going well. If we have the time and headspace, and we can focus and intentionally not to do things or do things. But when then life becomes stressful, we become busy, it's so easy to fall into the habits. So
Mhm.
I'm curious to, know a little bit more about, maybe, yes, you had this kind of lucky situation almost where you had to step outside of your norm and go through the detox. But I'm still sure when you came back home, the new routines would have been coming back. The feelings, the thoughts, the ideas, the brain would still be like, okay, we had a little bit
Yeah, I
break,
had
we're
to come
somewhere
back and do
else.
my laundry again, and I had to come back
Yeah,
and cook for my family again.
exactly.
Yeah.
So how did you then deal with coming back to the reality, coming back home and realizing, okay, it was nice and easier. It's usually easier to change and be different when we're in a different environment, but
Mhm.
being back in a similar, same familiar environment, what helped you then to reinforce and keep going? And when you felt tempted not to do, or maybe if there's something that then you would recommend and work with on clients, and that you discovered that maybe you didn't need it for yourself but could be a great advice for someone else to then reinforce new habits.
What I recommend to my clients and to your listeners and my listeners on my podcast as well is, how do we how do we find that purpose? Number one, like what most of us, many of us are not living on purpose, and we know there's something. What is that thing? There's something greater, there's something bigger for me out there. I know I need to quit drinking, I need to do this. But what is this? How do we find out what this is? And in coaching compared to therapy, coaching, we like to look forward. We want to look at the future. Therapy, we go back and we deal with the wounds and the traumas. But how do we find this purpose? I want you to think about going back to your childhood. This is what worked for me. And what I like to coach on is go back to your childhood and what were you good at? What did you want to be when you grew up? And for me, I was a phenomenal writer. I was a phenomenal writer. I had amazing creativity. In my English class, I was always getting A's and A pluses and teacher's pet and all that. And then I let it go. I let it go and lost myself in the shuffle and the grind and chasing the money and getting the big house and like just keeping up with the Joneses. So once I got back, first you have to make the decision. You got to make the decision. I'm not going to pick up a drink today. It starts with that. It has to. And then I just started writing in that hotel room. Just started writing. I'd wanted to write a book for 10 years. I don't know if you've ever tried to read a book while drinking. It doesn't go very well. You start like rereading and like, however, and writing a book when you're drinking is absolutely impossible. So in that hotel room, I just started writing. And my husband was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know, just writing," kind of like a journal entry. A few days had gone by. He's like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you writing about?" And I was about 10,000 words in. And I would start reading it to him and just kind of sharing my perspective because I was detoxing and getting sober as I was writing my book. So he's like, "Babe, you might like be onto something here." By the time I was like 80,000 words in, and he's like, "You have a book here." And it was kind of like this, I call them brain wow moments. Oprah calls them aha moments. But it was like this brain wow moment of like, I did it. I wrote the book I always wanted to write because I tapped into little Challaine and what she was good at and what she loved like over 20 years ago. And that was writing, that was being creative. And then that just kind of snowballed into my fingers cannot type as fast as my brain is trying to like process information and get it out. I created sobriety courses and coaching programs and going back to school and launching the podcast and building my website and like all these things like this just creativity just poured out of me because I tapped into what I was good at when I was little. So if I can offer advice is it may hurt to go back there. But your little you, little Challaine is still in there and forget about like the mortgage payments and don't forget about your mortgage payment. That's not what I'm saying, but let's prioritize what truly fulfills our dharma, what fills our soul and what makes us happy. Because it's not just about not drinking. You have to replace that with something meaningful.
And that's such great advice, especially, is going back is what were you good at as a child? I mean, as you said, life gets in the way. You become a teenager. You've most probably been told, keep quiet, don't do this, don't do that, don't be silly. All these things that we're told by teachers and parents. So we shut down or disconnect from that inner person that's in there. And as you said, the writing, I mean, we've had many guests talking about the journaling and writing and writing to help you to reconnect, not necessarily to write a book, not necessarily because writing is what you're good at, but writing is also just a way of communicating, of getting it out of your head in a way, and then starting to just write for almost the sake of writing, just write and what's coming. So you're not even thinking about what you're writing, but just writing as a way to clear yourself or to get it out, because when you just writing and then you look back on it, it's like, wow, I hadn't thought about that, or I didn't see that. So writing doesn't necessarily have to be because you're good at it, but it's a great way to start to heal or to start to look at something in a different perspective, or it's just a way to do something other than something else. Or, you know,
Absolutely.
writing is just such a powerful tool, and it doesn't even have to be correct. It doesn't have to be grammar.
No.
You don't have to have the commas and the full stops and the capital
No.
letters and, you know, write it the right way. In my case, it's usually illegible because my handwriting is so awful, but it's just get it out there. Just get it out there and just see what happens. Because when you make that space, it's like when you declutter your house, or, you know, clean up a cupboard or something, and you make that space, new ideas can come in, or healing can happen, or you can forgive yourself, or you can all sorts, anything. And that's what the power of writing can really do. And I love how you were getting sober, detoxing, and writing your book.
Absolutely.
Not everybody has to do that.
No, and it doesn't, you don't have to write a book. You don't have to journal. It can be as simple as, I don't know, taking a piece of paper and writing hate, love, courageous, dreams, and then maybe branching off of these words that come to your mind. Let's take hate for an example. I hate my mother. I hate that I was introduced to alcohol at the age of 12. I hate that my mother moved me away. I hate that I'm in this position. Love. I love my children. Like, just get whatever is inside you out. It doesn't have to be a book. Start with words, any words that come to your mind, and just branch off of that. A little brainstorming session with yourself.
So we've talked very much about your journey to that last night for drinking, and then the getting through it and what's helped you to get through it. But now that you've gone through it, what has sort of come about because of not drinking anymore? Where are you at now? You've written your book, you've detoxed, you can live with alcohol in your house and not have a drink.
Who would have ever thought? Like, I was the one finishing the bottle and grabbing the empties from like the garage. Yeah, who would have ever thought? I've got, I don't even know, 25 coolers sitting up in my cabinet that I've completely forgotten about until this conversation. So, where am I at now? That's a great question. I am still a work in progress. I am 1,000% committed and confident in my sobriety. And there, you know, reading online and talking with people and like hearing of people setting sobriety dates, well, after the wedding, or there's a funeral coming up, or after the graduation, or after the birthday party, there will always, and I promise you, there will always be a reason to drink. Every single time the hockey game is on, the UFC fight is on. But all of those reasons to drink are the exact same reasons not to drink. And I think that's really, really important, because as we spin around year after year, there will always be New Year's. There will always be birthdays, more than one, your own and whoever else's. There will always be anniversaries. There will always be Christmas. And always a reason to drink. So setting a sobriety date of after this event, well, you can just keep pushing that new sobriety date to the next event. So start there. If we can remember that all the reasons to drink are the exact same reasons not to drink. And kind of going back and finding who that little child is inside of you. I still focus on that. My creativity. I am no longer working inside my businesses, because yes, I can help generate more income if I'm working inside my businesses physically. But from a family dynamic, mommy's not there. Mommy's not happy. I'm not a happy wife, or a happy woman in my relationship. So for me to step back from my companies and really focus on me, it sounds selfish, but I'll be selfish and work on myself, because the happier I am, the happier my family is going to be. If you don't have a dollar, you can't give a dollar. So yeah, and just continuing with podcasts and connections, and I've got a new community that I've created on school. Sober is the new sexy. And it is like, what is sexy about being hungover and taking like clothes off in front of strangers and being belligerent and swearing and yelling at people and losing your phone and walking downtown without your high heels on? Maybe that's my story, maybe it's not. But I mean, it's just uh, we got to do better. We got to do better. Sober is the new sexy. And I think when it comes to feeling judged by other people, and uh well, this event is happening and everybody is going to be drinking, well, you got two options. You either go to the event and, oh sorry, three options. You either go to the event and you drink and go against what you're trying to do for yourself and your health, or you go to the event and you don't drink and you leave early and you save money and you don't carb out and eat all the crappy food at the end of the night, and you wake up, go to bed on time and wake up at a decent time and be prepared to be a parent to your children if you have young children. Or you don't go. You don't go. There will always be another event that you can, and that's just it. Like, we have to start taking responsibility for our lives. Just because you're invited to something, it doesn't mean you have to go. And if it's going to put you in a vulnerable situation where you're going to be tempted to go against what you're fighting so freaking hard for, don't go. It's about you, it's not about the party. So that's where I'm headed. My sober community, and writing more books, and just like being on podcasts like yours, and my podcast, which is geared around sobriety as well. We have to start getting this message out there. Mommy doesn't need wine. It's a lie.
Thank you so much for saying that we have a choice. Because sometimes the choice will be difficult. Sometimes the choice is that we will have to, distance ourselves from some of the people in our lives, be it friends, be it family, be it communities. Because sometimes it is really hard to go to events and see all the alcohol around. Like for me, I go to a lot of industry events, to lots of networking. And there's free booze everywhere. And the cheap person in me, the person who really likes to be cheap and live of little and, scrape around, is always very confused by the notion of there's free booze and free food everywhere. And I should not have that. So obviously then, depending on people, if we can control ourselves, if not, we will decide. But the choice, the fact that we have a choice, sometimes the choice will be difficult, but we always have a choice, and we have the
Absolutely.
ability to, change our lives. So thank
And
you
you
for
talk
spreading the message.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about friends. So have I lost friends throughout this sobriety journey? Well, I spent most of my time drinking either in the local pub or at the casino with my friends. They weren't my friends. They were my friends. They were my drinking buddies. Like, they were my acquaintances. And yeah, randomly I'd add people, we'd add each other on Facebook, but would I invite them to my baby shower? Would I invite them to my wedding? Would I invite them over for coffee? Absolutely not, because you know how incredibly uncomfortable that would be, because I only know these people as drinking buddies, and like we were just belligerent and loud and karaoke and doing just stupid shit together. right? So to look at the people in your life and your relationship with alcohol and your relationship with those people and alcohol, really evaluate that. Would you be open to taking those people without alcohol to other areas of your life? Would you have them over for dinner with your in-laws sort of thing, right? Like, because my friends I hold so close and so dear that my friends are my family. And yes, I will invite my friends over to have supper with my in-laws. And I have, but I'm not inviting those drinking buddies. Absolutely not.
But as you said, it is making those changes. There is a potential to lose friends or to lose those drinking buddies that you've most probably known for years. I'm just thinking about my ex. I mean, he knew some of these people for years, you know, and they do really connect. And then all of a sudden you don't have that drinking buddy network, you know, how, you know, it's then finding those new friends or making those new friends. But it's also, I think it's sticking to your boundaries and sticking to your guns and saying, this is what I'm doing. And then helping people to accept you for that. So I know that quite often my husband and I will go out and we won't drink. I mean, we have the odd drink here and there, but especially if one of us is driving, there's no drinking involved at all. And there have been times we've gone out, oh, just have one, you can have one, you know, for driving. But we are now known as that couple who one of us, if one of us will maybe drink, but the other one won't, and don't even try it. It doesn't work. You know, it's sometimes we've both gone to events and neither one of us wanted to drink, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know. But it took time to get people used to the idea that we're not going to have a drink. I mean, drinking in the UK is a big thing as well.
It's a thing,
I think it's a global thing, drinking, and I think over the last 4 years it's increased by a big thing. But it's just sticking to your guns that people then like realize they're not going to cave, so we're not going to bother trying to convince them that to have that pint or that glass and it's okay, you'll be fine to drive. No.
Your sobriety,
I'm fine to drive.
Exactly. Your sobriety is yours. So we got to get out of this mentality of caring so much about what other people think. And at the end of the day, they may not even think anything and don't give a crap. Right? So why do we put so much pressure on ourselves about what other people think? You had touched on friends and losing friends. And I think this is really important. Well, if we have such a good relationship and we're drinking and all these fun things happen. And I want to challenge that with you thinking you're going to lose these people, but look back 30 years, look back 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, 2 years, look back 6 months. Who is still without alcohol? Who is still in your life over the span of your life? It's not all the same people, right? So people will come and go in our lives for the rest of our lives, alcohol or not. I have lots of people who I had sober relationships with that I'm no longer friends with. Not because of anything bad. Our lives just went separate ways, and that's okay. And it's interesting because one of my best girlfriends, I just went to Seattle with her, and we were major drinking buddies. Like all the pictures from high school, we've been friends for over 20 years, and all of our pictures from high school, we're just drinking all the time and parties and this and that. And she's sober as well. So our sobriety has brought us this new friendship, which is really exciting and will be long lasting because we are sober and we're taking care of ourselves, and we're not going to wait for the diagnosis of you got to get a grip of this before it's too late, right?
And this is something that you know we are loving about our podcast, and it's something that we really are trying to get from our guests is is all about having more life in one's life. It's sort of the theme of our podcast. And just listening to the way you're speaking and what you're saying is you've created more life in your life through not drinking and having that personality coming out, like you said, belligerent.
Who was that?
down the
No
high
idea.
street, half naked, lost clothing, lost shoes,
It's
and
terrible.
you see that you see them on the streets, men and women. I mean, it's like, who are you? But it's creating that more life and having that better relationship with your husband and having the better relationship with your kids, because you're present now. You're there. You're not under a haze of alcohol that sort of dulls the senses or dulls your perception, and you're not picking a fight with somebody because
For no reason.
You're drunk and
Yeah.
you feel like having a fight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I mean, in all seriousness, a lot of people are very, very, very far down the rabbit hole and I don't recommend it, but I'm all or nothing. I did quit cold turkey and detoxed in a hotel room. But it is important to talk to your doctor, of course, and let them know that you're sober curious, or should I wean myself off? Should I go cold turkey? Should I go to detox, go to rehab? And talking about choices, you can be so far into your addiction and your alcoholism and physically dependent on it, but it is a choice to change. It is a choice to get help. It is a choice to seek a coach or a therapist or go to your doctor. So start there. Make the choice to do something different. Because if we don't do something different, then we're going to keep getting the same results that we've always gotten, and we're not happy there anymore, right? We're not happy. So just make one choice, make one phone call, make one text. And what on one of my mommy pages where I live, a lot of anonymous posts are coming out. A few non-anonymous posts are coming out from moms. It's a mom group, and just the struggle with alcohol. And if that's the step that you need to do to get real with yourself and start getting these emotions out and talking about it, maybe you're not a writer. Maybe you feel better speaking about it. Just get it out of your body and talk about what is going on, because sober people need sober people. You can't do it alone. You can't. I am the most stubborn, independent person on this planet, I promise you. And I didn't do it alone. I did it with my kids. I did it with my husband. I did it with Instagram. This is a good tip. I cleaned up my whole social media thing. I unfollowed any pages that were about partying, anything that supported drinking, anybody who are my friends on my social medias. I didn't delete them, but I don't comment or like or love any of their posts where they're taking selfies with drinks and they're like wasted at the bar or at the beach or something, because me liking or loving that is promoting that behavior. And so clean up your news feeds, and if you stop seeing all of that, then you won't be tempted as much. So listen and follow to sobriety podcasts, read books. My book, I Woke Up One Day and Changed My Fucking Mind. Annie Grace, This Naked Mind, that was a great book. Mel Robbins, she's phenomenal. She certainly got me or helped me along my journey to sobriety. If you just start changing your environment and what you can control and make choices, then your results are going to be different. They have to be, because you've changed the formula.
And that is such great advice. Like you said, read or follow, or do something, but also make sure that you're following the right people, reading the right books, and just making those changes. And I think also it's talking about it as well. It's making it more fashionable, or as you said, sexy to be sober. It's about saying, letting people know it's okay to be the ones not drinking at the party. It's okay to not want to have a drink at this event, and to just shift this idea that you're not having fun unless you're drinking, and don't be such a party pooper because you haven't got a glass of wine in your hand. And I think
Isn't that so twisted how we get condemned for, well, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you drinking? No. What's wrong with you? Why are you putting poison into your body? Like, how did that get so backwards? It blows my mind.
So I think, and as you said, sharing your story, because hopefully somebody's listening to this and thinking, oh my word, I'm at that point. Okay, I need to change this, because as you said, you were drinking to get away from the life that you were trying to create for yourself.
I know. And it's okay not to be okay. We put up this front of like the professional in the workplace, or the mom who's got it all together, and then behind closed doors, that's when like it starts kind of falling apart, right? We put this persona of what we want the public to see. Look at anybody's Facebook pages, they're not showing the morning after the night before when you're hungover riding the porcelain bus. So if we can just accept that behind those closed doors, behind the facade, it's okay not to be okay. And come to terms with that, and then take those little changes, those little steps in your life to really create the life that that you want. The only constant in life is change. The only constant in life is change. And where you are today is not where you're going to be in a year.
And that is so true. And it is about making those changes. And just thank you so much for sharing your experience and your story, and sharing a lot of useful tips and advice. And this is the part where we love to get what we call the gold nugget. So gold nugget is, we take this out and we put it onto Patreon. Hop on to our Patreon account to get this episode's amazing and wonderful gold nugget. So if somebody's been listening and they're thinking, you know what, I know somebody who needs this fantastic woman, or I want to learn more, I want to find out more, where can people find you?
Oh, everywhere. I'm everywhere. My website, Challaine.com, Instagram. I'm kind of peeling away from Instagram because even though it was a very valuable resource for me, and with cleaning up my social medias and following people, sober people there, just doing posts of happy sober Sunday, like I need to contribute more than that. So my podcast, Let's Have a Chat, and what I'm really focusing on right now is my community online, Sober is the New Sexy, and it's a school community, sober is the new sexy community.com.
Well, thank you. And all the links will be in the description so people can click on them and find you. And again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and just sharing your story, because stories are so valuable. Stories are powerful. And somebody might not be in the exact same place you are. They might not necessarily be drinking, but something might just trigger them to think, oh my God, I can change, I can do something. Or there's a habit might have suggestion that you've made. You never know how somebody's story will impact somebody else. I love stories, and people's journeys are just so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing yours and just taking some time out in your morning.
We finally got together. I'm glad we made it work, and you are so welcome.
And it's been wonderful to have you here. So again, thank you so much. And for our listeners, what have you got from today? It's quite a serious topic, but there's been so much really valuable information and valuable advice shared. Do you know somebody who is drinking too much, or are you drinking too much and wanting to make the change? Has alcohol impacted your life in some way? We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you got from this. And has some of the advice that Challaine has shared, does it resonate with you? Is this something that you can implement in your life? So please do share with us what you've got from this episode. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.